So my name is Chris Conway. I'm a principal and a partner in a two-man consultancy known as Longevity Asset Advisors. The main office is in Atlanta, where I used to live and run a company, and I live outside of Princeton, New Jersey. We are specialist advisors and managers in the life settlement industry. We've been involved in a number of bankruptcy cases in a variety of different roles. Most of those cases involve some sort of life settlement portfolio or an operating business that has run afoul of the particular characteristics associated with life settlements and how they're funded, how they're purchased, how they're underwritten. We have advised United States trustees, privately or circuit court appointed trustees and receiverships. We've also advised counsel for plaintiffs as well as defendants in certain cases, but almost all of them involve either life settlements or some sort of life insurance valuation issue, including market conduct, underwriting, the specifics of how insurance works, participants in the marketplace and the various roles, regulatory issues, all those kinds of things. So we've kind of gradually worked our way into a role as an expert witness, writing expert reports, doing valuation work. We've also even backstopped some other consultants who are predominantly salespeople in liquidation transactions and things of that nature, where we manage the documentation, the due diligence process, and the valuation, and they pitch the deal to an audience of distressed purchasers.
Do you face any particular challenges working in the bankruptcy environment?
The biggest challenge that we have faced, aside from some things that we understand are possible in bankruptcy court that we had to learn the hard way, such as the transfer of equity of the debtor at the court, at the judge's bench, such that, for example, an auction that was extremely successful, but the ownership of the company changed and they did not move to sell the assets, that company eventually failed anyway. So we think we did a good job, but the court couldn't do anything about whether the new owner could do a better job than the previous owner. The biggest challenge we face is, quite frankly, we often arrive late in the case. Usually as a function of one side or the other bringing some other kind of expert in. And the challenge there is that a lot of what we find ourselves working with counsel and clients about would have been helpful to them earlier in the case. The problem is there's no way to know what you're going to run into in any case, whether it's litigation or bankruptcy. So most of our activity involves a certain measure of firefighting with a very short time frame and a lot of information to go through, not because of anybody's fault, but because nobody knew that the issues that we're expert in were going to come up. That's the biggest challenge, is being behind the eight ball. In general, I've been around the business for 30 years, and the truth is that the way the business operated at kind of a fundamental level then and now hasn't really changed enough, such that it's still a niche market. But current circumstances, particularly everybody figuring out how to live in a remote world and how inefficient working with documentation is and how unnecessary being face-to-face all the time can be with respect to just getting things done, has actually benefited this industry without it expecting to be the case. I think the future of life settlements is that over time, more and more people will become aware that life insurance is an asset, a form of personal property. It has a lot of the characteristics of real estate in the sense that you can build equity in it, not just in the form of paying premiums and building up cash value, but in terms of the relationship between your life expectancy and the death benefit. And I think it will eventually have an impact on the nature of life insurance, the way in which it's purchased and how it's perceived. It's a very attractive asset in certain interest rate environments, i.e. low interest rate environments. But because the death benefit doesn't increase or fluctuate, it's non-correlated, there are, in theory, environments in which it wouldn't be as attractive. I think the market's probably growing at somewhere between 7 to 10% a year. It's always had the potential to be orders of magnitude bigger. One of the challenges we face is an absence of standardization across the industry with respect to value versus price, life expectancy. I actually own an interest in a life expectancy underwriting company. It's part art, part science. But as those things begin to normalize, life insurance and the life settlement option will become more and more prevalent as the population ages, and we should see transaction volumes grow significantly over the next 20 years. In the early days and the way the market came about, it's still a pretty esoteric asset, and a lot of big names sniff around it, sometimes get involved, from Berkshire Hathaway to Blackstone to a lot of smaller investors, but it still isn't quite mainstream. My summary statement would be that most consumers don't understand life insurance in and of itself. So understanding what can be done with it is kind of a second stage evolutionary process. But things are actually improving fairly dramatically now that people kind of have time to think about these things. Sadly, the concept of mortality is fairly prevalent right now, and the life insurance markets are also becoming much more sophisticated, much more consolidated. So all those things probably bode well for us if we can behave ourselves, number one, and manage that growth towards some form of efficiency. It's a very inefficient business right now, a lot of barriers to entry, but nothing that's can't be overcome. It's really just a function of the willingness of the market to become more efficient. One of the downsides of efficiency is people who make a lot of money out of inefficiency don't fit in markets like that anymore, right? Others do, but it displaces certain kinds of participants. And we have to go through that evolutionary step before we become, if not household, at least much more widely known.
So I guess I'm going to ask you who could typically use your services and what kind of service you could provide.
First of all, fortunately, perhaps, although not for the bankruptcy community, but perhaps for the life settlements community, it's a very small industry. There are issues and there are cases that are around all the time, some of them very high-end, cost of insurance litigation, really. But bankruptcies happen. There aren't huge volumes of them all the time. So a lot of what Longevity Asset Advisors does is provide pure consultancy services to the marketplace, to people looking to enter the marketplace, and to a variety of different participants that support the marketplace. So we've undertaken engagements with hedge funds, individual high net worth investors, shareholders, operators, including most of the companies operating in the industry, to do specific things, everything from market survey, market intelligence work, to operational design, workflow efficiency studies, audits, valuation reports on portfolios, vendor selection and management, you name it. Almost every role in the industry, from the data entry on down, I've had the opportunity to do, because I started when everybody did everything on a legal pad or a $3,000 PowerBook from Apple when they were really expensive. So we do a lot of things in and around the industry. We even get involved in some cases, although not frequently, in valuing life insurance policies for people who are wealthy and have lots of them, but have somehow heard that they are an asset and they want to look at them from more than just a premium death benefit perspective. Are they paying efficiently? Are they managing their insurance correctly? And those kinds of things. So we get involved in a lot of that. And then, of course, that kind of informs our expertise when it comes to very specific matters involving litigation, bankruptcy, and so on and so forth, because we see a lot of different transaction types, a lot of different behaviors, a lot of different parties that get involved in different ways, how they make money, what they do right, what they do wrong, and all those kinds of things. So the groundwork kind of supports the litigation and bankruptcy work. And without the groundwork, we'd be more academic and frankly less useful to trustees, litigators, and others, because we actually do roll up our sleeves and get involved in transactions and things like that in the market all the time. There are a lot of life insurance agents that do some not so good things. Okay.
That's a shock.
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't
stunning.
think that before this case.
Well, here's the thing though, right? They're very relationship oriented, right? So they're very good salespeople. And sometimes their best friend goes, wait a minute, I'm not sure. I don't know, but if you want to talk, for example, to kind of a pure life insurance guy, let me know. I know a couple of them where it's not settlement oriented, but market conduct amongst producers and people that sell this stuff. I mean, one of the things that often comes up in life settlements cases has nothing to do with a life settlement. It has to do with how the thing was sold. So we were involved in the Life Partners case on the plaintiff side, but a lot of the plaintiffs were sales guys. I think we talked about this when we first met, right? So a lot of your clients also bought this stuff. I think what's interesting is that there is a point at which, and I've talked to a lot of these guys, some of them a lot more than I wanted to, but there's almost an ego thing that gets in the way of the intellect. Like they think nothing more than zero will do. I'd take that nickel in a heartbeat knowing the facts, right? But some guys just will dig in and die as a matter of faith, not logic.